we should start. We follow our Galician tradition to start in 15 minutes later. We start only in 10 minutes later, but I guess it's enough for those who are interested in the topic to get here. Those who will be late, pity for them. So let's start. Today we have a very interesting presentation on students' protests. And for Ukraine, it's now a very hot topic because we have elections, and now people are talking, okay, if president will be okay for our society, we can start protests later. Maybe if we have elections 21st of April, then on 22nd of April. So that's interesting whether protests sometimes are useful for stability of social systems. So we are glad to hear your presentation here. Now our lecture presenter is Mагдалена Tendera from
Ягеллonskiego University from Krakів.
Yes. PhD in social, I guess.
Yes, since 2 weeks exactly. So today is 2 weeks since I've defended.
Few weeks ago, yes.
2 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Our congratulations, yeah.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I think so this is already a finished project. Totally, it's not during the process or anything in that kind. It was defended as a PhD thesis, and to be in that form, the finished form, was a very, very long way to go. So I'll start from the beginning, okay? So the initial idea, my initial idea at the very beginning was to explain the very high frequency of student protests in Serbia, actually. After kind of long-term desk research, I have come to the conclusion that Serbia is a kind of specific country if it comes to student protests, because they appear very frequently, they're very intense, and this will be a good object of observation, of research, and can bring a lot of interesting new facts about the mechanism of protest in general. But my first assumption was a little bit different actually, because my initial idea was to explain the frequency and intensity of student protest by a totally different idea. As I have discovered that the protests are very frequent, and they are such frequency is being observed since 50s, so it's quite a few decades. I thought, okay, so this is a kind of country in a moment, in an age of transformation. Probably that was the initial assumption, that this protest can kind of try to facilitate that transformation, and probably kind of concept which shows structurally how it is being done. Very useful. And my first idea was to use the concept of structural aggression of Ms. Manser. For those who are not very much into social sciences, he's a very famous sociologist who died just a few years ago. He's a kind of, his theories are absolutely classical if it comes to protest research, protest movement and stuff like this. He was American, but the structural aggression concept is a concept about academic activity in universities. And he said that universities, the communities develop in that way that there is a kind of particular structural mechanism of development. A lot of institutions are being brought to life, and those institutions get more and more high specialization in different roles, in different fields, in different activities. So a lot of organizations are being brought into life, and they go more and more into different specialization, social, political, charity, whatever. And yes, actually, at the first sight, it was looking very, very credible for my research, because there are a lot of institutions, a lot of political organization, youth organization, different forms of activity formalized in different ways in Serbia. So I thought, okay, this is probably the mechanism that goes. So there's this aggression, a lot of organizations are being brought to life, there is this education, so there are quite democratic ones. So probably try to push this transformation ahead. So, and what appeared? Very Belgrade has verified negatively the second part of the assumption, because of course, yes, there are a lot of institutions, organizations, stuff like that, who operate within the political system in Belgrade, but somehow they do not facilitate, they do not bring this transformation. So, I had to think about something alternative to this. So what is going on with the system? That there's a lot of political grassroots activity, there's a lot of political activity from the youth, but still nothing is going on in the region, nothing important that pushes the transformation ahead. So it was a kind of thing to solve, problem to solve. Okay, so that I came with the major conceptual frame, the relationship between student protests, post-humanist transformation in the Balkans. So this relationship is very interesting, was very interesting for me, but it couldn't be put in a way of how do they facilitate, because they do not. So the major question is, what is the relationship between one and the other, and why do I assume that student protests shall facilitate this transformation? Of course, they should for many reasons, because it's not only that history has shown that student protest has helped somehow to push political culture ahead in the Central and Western Europe in the 1960s and during the transformation of 89 and stuff like that. And a lot of students' initiatives were then pushing the transformation ahead, making some kind of political institutions more democratic, more open, more liberal, and stuff like that. What is even more, the processes of knowledge. The academia is from the very assumption of kind of democratic institutions. So the patterns of interaction, the patterns of teaching, the culture that shows that the best education is when you can freely express your ideas, your political orientation, when you can work on to get more knowledge about what you're interested in, when you can choose your political option freely. That's what is academic traditionally connected to. So, moreover, those people who, generation by generation, are protesting in Serbia since at least 50s, for sure 60s, 70s, and fall down of Yugoslavia and stuff like that. Those people, educated along the line of Western education models, because the education models in Serbia and the Balkans are totally Western literature, the concept and theories. It's all the Western thought, the Western ideas. Those people, one moment, become the member of society by taking the high political positions, cultural positions, academic positions. So what's going on? Those people that previously trying to push these things ahead, they finally settle down in the system, yes, and they just stay there. And then another generation comes, tries to push something, and they go into that system back, and there's still that equilibrium situation. That's very interesting. So I was for some time in a very, very confusing mindset, trying to understand what actually is going on. So I need the concept to explain what is going on. Okay. The very fact that there's a problem with post-socialist transformation in the region is a kind of it is kind of a dogma in the issue already. Of course, this is also scientific measurement. This is a scientific fact that there is a problem. There's a lot of literature about that. This literature was written in the Balkans. It's a kind of also a lot of European Union's measures used to show that. Economy, so some of them are human rights, obviously grassroots activity, political activity, participation voting, for example, and so on. And that time, also I decided that, besides the very fact that Serbia has a very high frequency of student protest, that also Bulgaria is similar to that case. So I will try to do a comparative analysis and see whether it is something rooted in the region, or it is something rooted in the political system, or maybe it's something else. So finally, I've chosen first two research objectives, but these objectives were already done, made up, thought out within the concept of secular security of Michel Foucault. I was for a long time searching for a kind of theoretical frame which can just put together this problem, and it wasn't easy, I have to say. And this concept is neither popular nor very simple, not very easy, and not very and so on and so on. Because in general, it's a concept of security. Security systems in general, they're kind of I don't know, structural mechanism that just prevents society from destruction. They keep more or less society as a form of, I don't know, kind of balance between different forces. But I will clear this concept a little bit more during the process of explanation. So, for sure, there are a lot of political strains, a lot of difficulties and stuff like that. So I was looking for something that will help me to put a lot of things going on. This very, very dynamic political situation in Serbia and the Balkans. I think the concept of security was, at the beginning, at least the one that was somehow adaptable to the research, and finally, which appeared to be very useful, because after I finally finished research, I said that actually that shows very things, a lot of different things that haven't been shown before. Because, okay, the traditional approach to the student protest in the Balkan is the transformative one. And there's a lot of literature, people saying that, okay, they try to push the bold new open society. There's a lot of social movements there. There's a book that this is books which say that it was kind of revolution which just didn't happen or wasn't successful. It was an attempt of revolution. So that the protests which take place in Serbia are kind of attempts of reversing the system. While this concept is something absolutely opposite. So it is just kind of ongoing, stable balance which cannot be changed within decades. So in that terms, this explanation is totally in opposition to the classical thinking about student protests, about social movements, about grassroots activity and stuff like that. Okay, this is a short draft of the concept of security of Michel Foucault. For those who are interested in political science, Michel Foucault is obviously known. For those who know him, Michel Foucault is a very famous French thinker who died 84. Quite long ago, relatively, but he was a kind of important figure, a kind of game changer, a person who brought a lot of new ideas to social thinking and stuff like that. But that's another question. The major frame of security, of thinking, is the concept of biopolitics. I'm saying about, excuse me, okay, it's here. I'm saying about this because it's the general theory, it's a theory of biopolitics. This theory for Foucault is being divided into two forms of social control. Biopolitics is a kind of control over human life, and this control has two aspects. One of them is concentrated on the body, and it's a concept of discipline. So, for example, prisons, other totalitarian institutions, hospitals, and stuff like that. And when everything is more connected on human body, on single person life, and the other is a concentration on population, so managing populations. So it's a very political paradigm. It's a political paradigm which is concentrated both on a particular body and on populations. So the concept of security is more concentrated on populations. So more or less it's this way of thinking. Here is a very important of nation state. I will try to come back to this, but I wanted to go forward, okay? Because time is running. Okay. The assumption of the value added of the dissertation, so what I wanted to do, what I wanted to achieve, was first of the post-communist transformation in Central and Eastern Europe. In Europe, especially in the 90s, was a very popular assumption that all the countries, all the socialist, post-socialist countries, are governed the same way. So, this is the very moment that the people hit the streets, and we see the mass protests, the transformation has started. No. And it's not just me who has noticed that this is not true. Here in Ukraine, we have a lot of examples when this transformation was not being so obvious, so straightforward and stuff like that. There are a lot of such countries actually, especially in Eastern Europe. Polish case was easier, it was more straightforward, but there are other reasons for this. But definitely it's not the necessity, it's not the necessary pattern. It's not something that has to happen, it's something that usually happens or in some cases has happened. So the critical of the discourse of the post-communist transformation as to evolutionary, so that every society has to go through this every stadium to overthrow the communism and go into democracy and so on. That's not the necessary constraint by necessity, definitely. Comprehensive explanation is important in Serbia, and Bulgaria. I wanted to provide a comprehensive explanation, show what is the reason for the protracted transformation. Obviously, it was very interesting to demonstrate how anthropological methods, anthropological theories, and anthropological qualitative research can be adopted in research of large political problems, issues, processes, and stuff like that, to show that science, which is kind of social science, is usually connected to the question of research on locality, ethnic and religion, and stuff like that, can be absolutely fully used to the real systemic issues. Let's proceed. How it was implemented. Of course, anthropological methods, fieldwork research. I spent in Belgrade doing the research about 7 months I was living there. Of course, it was divided into a few parts, but in total it took 7 months and just 3 weeks in Sofia because lack of funding, unfortunately, so I wasn't able to fund more of the research. So this is the reason why the data I have collected are not very much from a technical point of view comparable. So that's discussed, but as much as I could, I was trying to achieve similar results. Fieldwork research, I was lucky enough to participate in one of the largest, recently spotted largest student protests in Belgrade, including occupation and academic buildings. In total, this occupation took about 55 days. So it was one of the longest occupations in that region, and in that case, and most of the material, I'll show you pictures later on, were done then. But going back, broad theory, thick description, comparative approach. Thick description is also kind of anthropological. For anthropologists, very narrow. Thick description is a description where you very precisely, with details, describe everything that's going on, that's happened in the field, how people behave, look like, what do you taste, what do you smell, and something. So everything which is what's going around. So one of these kind of descriptions, or part of the description, is included in the dissertation. Comparative approach. So Serbia and Bulgaria has this comparative approach, trying to show what is in the nation state, what is in the region, and which of those dimensions is more important, dominant. This research, of course, a lot of literature and stuff like. There's a lot of literature about student protests in Serbia since a few decades, and there's a lot of information about Bulgaria, but since '89. So it's a very complicated. I will return to the question soon and try to explain why there is such difference in information. So a lot of information I collected were based on literal, but majority it was based in Belgium about observation and interviews, and in Bulgaria it was based on interviews. So I've done the fieldwork, I've done the interviews. I was asking the participants of the protest, because the sample, as I have mentioned before on the slide, was 15 in-depth interviews in Serbia and 13 in Bulgaria. And those were people long-term involved in protest activity for a few years, participating in a few events, and moreover they were usually sociologists because they were from the Department of Philosophy. So they were philosophers, sociologists, anthropologists, ethnologists, so people who very often with their interviews provided kind of ready-made frames of which they thought I should use in interpreting those events. So I was sometimes said, okay, but you know, we had this occupation here, and we had this protest, and you should understand that, you know, in the frame of the concepts of power relations. And okay, and then I was given a lot of different justifications why I should this and not that concept. So, in the time of doing interviews, I've got a lot of kind of this confusion when the experience was mixed with theoretical explanation, which was given by my respondents, Dan, who were actually very prepared to give this kind of justification, you know, in theories, in social theories, and sociology, political science, stuff like that. Okay. Space of security. Those are 4 dimensions of the mechanism of security for Foucault. This is space, treatment, normalization, is all Foucault. The orange stuff is mine. Space of security. So for Foucault, the space of security, if we talk about the mechanism of security, is closed. What it means? It means that protests do not take the whole city, the entire city. They are limited. They are put in a particular space in the city, and they do not spread, and they are not allowed to spread. And what appeared in my research? Yes, it is closed, and it's being treated as something obvious given, and why not here? Why somewhere else? When I was talking to people, I said, okay, but why here? Why in the institute? Why do you block? Why do you occupy this particular building? Because it's obvious. Because, I mean, we work here, we study here, we should occupy this place. And from one hand, it sounds very obvious. From the other, from the point of view of this theory, it's a serious problem. Because if you want to make a kind of shift, then you need to try to challenge this space. Because space is also a very important political dimension in the city. So it shows how much, you know, protests very much fit to that concept of security being delimited to a particular space in the city. So the buildings, particular streets, and the participants themselves consider it as natural. So that's first dimension. Treatment of the uncertain. This is what Foucault means by this, that, okay, in other words, how do society behaves when protests appear? So how does society react? Whether there are particular ways of behavior, whether they are accepted, they are from that point of view of someone who would not very much expect that something serious has happened. There is something that also, after Foucault, called sanitary aspects. It's visible when protests appear that there's that besides that they're limited to a particular space, they're also being surrounded by police. There are also different kinds of officers. There are also sometimes workers, kind of professors and lecturers of the institute, which are very much responsible for the order. They are themselves responsible for the order. There's a very strong particular order which separates the movements from the other parts of the city, from other citizens and stuff like that. Traditionally, it was called sanitary aspect because for Foucault, in the medieval world, this behavior was not allowed for diseases to spread. So if people were sick, they had a kind of infection, virus, stuff like this, they had to be separated somehow. And from my perspective, it can be just like this shift. This mechanism started to work for other social events, and it also prevents from spreading, literally, physically prevent things from spreading around. Next dimension, normalization. So what is the easiest way I can say this? What is just justification of the media, of the academy, of the people who are responsible in the front of society of saying what is going on? So probably you also experience also a few times that when the protests appear, there are different people in media speaking their mind about what's going on. So, for example, I don't know, in Ukraine, these people trying to make a revolution, change their politics and stuff like this. Or somewhere else in the, I don't know, during the ACTA movement, the other people are trying to fight for kind of media freedom and stuff like that. There's just a kind of justification. In both cases, in Serbia and Bulgaria, it appeared that this is a kind of depreciation. So there are two models. In Serbia, there was a very popular justification that students who do protest are the students who have problems in education and cannot pass their exams. So that was the justification. Why do they protest? Because they're lazy, they don't want to learn, so they just think about something else and they just just occupy a faculty, and the good students cannot pass their exams. So that was this labeling. They're the bad students who occupy the building. The good who wants to, of course, as you may assume, that had nothing to do with reality. A lot of very good students were actually some of them really outstanding, and also involved in other kind of political activity, were the leaders of the protest occupation. So as long as you were not very much informed in this situation, you could say, okay, probably is there. But as much as you were going into that situation, it was obvious that that was absolutely, I wouldn't say the elite, but for sure people who perfectly know what they're doing. They were trained to do that, but by themselves somehow, educated and stuff like that. And they did, and they knew what for they were doing. Of course, there were some kind of reason, financial, political reason why they are doing the protest. The last dimension is the population politics. That's the governing of the social group. That's the most political dimension. In this part, I was searching whether there is a particular governmental politics towards the students. I mean, whether say in other words, whether the government knows what it is doing. Because if you want to shape society, and if you want to have, for example, a particular social group which in future is going to implement post-socialist transformation, you need to educate them in a particular way. That's obvious, yes? Because they have to do how to, I don't know, how to get the funds from the EU, yes? How to change the law. What about the human rights are about, yeah? So and so on and so on. So if you know the direction into which the country is going, you can manage your third level education to prepare a particular group of people to do the change you're planning. That's simple. More or less, of course, to greater or lower extent, but still, that's what the education is for. At least some departments. So, I don't know, Department of Education, of Politics, of Economy, and stuff like that. But I haven't spotted any particular politics towards the population. The problem is what I have mentioned before. There is from one side the authoritarian regime, and from the other the Western models of education. And that's the entire problem in that unspecific politics, because it's not beginning with a plan. Whether I think that it should be that there will be implemented a particular politics which will educate those people to be citizens of EU or no, or the citizens of Balkan countries which are quite authoritarian, but then you need to prepare someone else who will have other skills, personal skills, other kinds of knowledge and stuff like that. But still, it has to be about kind of intentional movement, kind of people who are conscious what they're doing. So that's very true. What the interviews brought me to. What is the problem with the general cultural political system in the Balkans? There are a few terms actually quite popular who are very useful in explaining in the problem. The first of them is kandidocracy. This is a kind of new word. I always bring that to the table when I give the presentation. It's very interesting because it refers to the Balkan political culture especially. This term says about double kind of influences in maintaining political systems. One of them are internal, and one of them the other are external. The internal is the system itself, because every political system likes to reproduce itself, because that's the when people get into politics, they try to maintain their interests, their influences, and stuff like that. And just societies work like this. There's a system, there's always kind of natural attempt in that system to maintain it. Some political systems, sociologists probably are more stronger than others. Authoritarian systems are much more prone to strongly try to maintain the power. Democratic regimes, they're more loose, so they're more prone to lose their influences and favor to authoritarian regime. Poland is such a country, for example, which gave off this zones of freedom in favor to political, more authoritarian right-wing regime. Clientelism, especially between academia and politics. So, very strongly rebel the system of politics, strong education, but other sections of economy and society very weak. So there are just two strong fields which just complement each other. For naturalism, because there's no way that people who are being educated to find a job, anything anywhere else, because there's politics, education, and agriculture, especially in Serbia. Okay, censorship. It's especially it's very visible in Bulgaria. And it's also saying it's a term coined by Maria Todorova in her paper Bulgaria. It's a very interesting one if you were into that topic. And it's a general about historical censorship. The problem with censorship in Bulgaria was so serious that I have some problems in getting information what was going on within the academia and student process before 1989. Of course, I was for a short time in Bulgaria, but still doing the literature research and library, I haven't found anything significant about what they were or they weren't. So lack of information, which I suppose is the outcome of a strong censorship, political censorship, changing regimes, but each one which was coming were just trying to destroy, especially the science and historical sciences, obviously politics, philosophy and stuff like that. But maybe the history was the major victim of this censorship. Like a victim, we call that in Polish language lustracja. So it's a kind of process when candidates were being checked as not being the representative of the former communist regime in general. What's interesting? Strong grassroots tendencies and tendencies to mobilization. So this grassroots level, and then the step-to-step organization is very strong. It's very visible. So it shows that it's easier it's not easy to provoke, but protests in general appear very easily. So even now we have mass protests in Serbia for a long time. 1,5 miliona. And those are protests, if you're interested in, they're anti-governmental, Aleksandar Vučić regime, he's a former prime minister, the president of Serbia, and a lot of hundreds of thousands of people are regularly protesting on the streets of Belgrade to overthrow his regime. Some people say, oh, it's going to be like Yugoslavia and Milosevic. Of course, the situation is obviously not the same. But some people just try to compare those cases as very similar. Okay, these 3 points are very much into research aspects or methodology and stuff like that. So of course, I will just show you a few photographies, a few photos, which I've done in the field work. How much visual methods are useful, because there was a question that I was asked actually during my defense, and one of the review asked brought the question up, well, yeah, but maybe you should more concentrate on analyzing the visual methods. There was one problem actually with the Protestant Bulgaria, because I haven't been there when the occupation I was interested in appeared. But the problem was that nobody was allowed to take pictures. So in practice, no visual materials were done. All the pictures were done, and they were in media and so were done from the outside. So as far as I managed to do the pictures in the occupation in Belgrade, there are no pictures from the occupation in Sofia, and this was forbidden, and everyone was strictly behaving according to that rules. There were no pictures. So my answer was I didn't have any kind of comparable material, so I couldn't get the pictures in Sofia. So visual methods using was we just provide a partial explanation, which would be just adaptable to one of the cases, not to the other. British concept of Foucault. Okay, this concept of Foucault is kind of it's like Foucault himself, kind of complicated, kind of difficult, a bit of old, a bit written in front of his. So it would be very useful to some kind of complement it with other theories, maybe other theories of power, of language, of social capital and stuff like that. And idea came to my mind that maybe it's a kind of also reproduction of social capital and stuff like that. But that's just an idea that came to my mind later. And another question, American sociological traditional decisions of British in post-socialist countries in Europe. A lot of people, reviewers, and even if I go for a conference, stuff like this, a lot of idea about literature comes to my mind. It comes to their mind, and they suggest me, okay, you should use this, you should use that. What was problematic for me with the American sociological tradition? There's a lot of American literature if it comes to student protest. But the problem is in transformation. So how can I apply a theory which was built, a concept which was created basing on a system which is already democratic, and just try to use it to explain the countries, the student protests which appear in the countries who struggle with the transition. Whether it's whether the outcome will be right, whether these concepts are useful, and whether if I come to America and there is this kind of American democracy there, whether these concepts are useful at all or they are not. To me, I had doubts, so I was trying to concentrate more on that European tradition, especially using a lot of Serbian Bulgarian literature itself, because Serbian Bulgarian sociology is also very strong, and they have own concept books and stuff like that made on that, published on that topic. So I was trying to stuck to this, to what they think about it also, but still being more or less within that European tradition, and having somewhere in the back of mind this problem of transition, because Europe is very much strong built or attached to the concept of transition. A large part of Europe is going through that transition, so it is an important factor. It was very much important for my research, because this transformation was actually, problem of transformation were the major explanation why the protests occur with this kind of intense frequency. Things I wasn't talking about, but very interesting concepts which help me to build up the theoretical part. Homo Sacer, Georgia Agamben. It's a very interesting book for anthropologists, sociologists. Anyone of you who didn't read that book, I highly recommend. It's very interesting about the general political situation in Europe, also a little bit about the problem of refugees also. He touches this topic a bit. Of course, the political terms of expositor, security, territory, population. This is a set of lectures, and this book considers security mechanism as a kind of important set of or important tool of governing in the modern nation-state countries in Europe, actually, especially This is a late book of Michel Foucault. One of the last his theoretical achievements, and also Miss Nasser. Also one of his latest achievements, the article about the European University. The concept of oppression is included there. That's why I put this article here. If anyone is interested, which about reading what student protests are not. So this is the concept that was verified at the beginning. As I have promised, there's a pool. I should make it just a little bit larger. Let's see. A few pictures. This is a street protest in Serbia, in Belgrade. And was that just the occupation proceeds. Soon after this, it was a very large protest in Belgrade, and the picture myself. And soon after the massive protest, the occupation appeared. So it was just within a few days after this protest when the occupation appeared. Yes, still this protest in front of one of the ministries in Belgrade. As you see, it's still very, a lot of people came. There are all the students from the Serbian University, Belgrade universities, not only the university, but all tertiary education institutions. Okay, and that's the building, that's the occupied building. It's a picture done made during the day. As you see, there's information here, blockada, and a lot of other information put on the glass windows where you can read strictly what's the problem, that the building is occupied, and a lot of students in front of the building showing their support to the occupation, whether being participants of the event directly or indirectly, but whatever. This is the same building during night. Stoplaczki studenta, as far as I understand, some is about stop stealing from students. Blockada, the occupation, stuff like that. Not many people visible. It was one for a few days, but they were probably having some kind of meeting because there were like regular, some kind of so-called zbors, so gatherings organized where the decisions were being made by voting, probably. Security system. So they were regularly visiting the building for minor reasons, just coming and seeing what's going on, asking some kind of basic question and going, so kind of, I don't know, investigation or whatever reasons. This is how the life in the occupation was organized. Someone's tent being cooked. The good ideas were adopted for, as I said, the occupation took 55 days. So some people just, yes, 55 days is a very long time. I mean, it's almost the majority of the winter semester. So it was very costly if it comes to academic education. And that's not the question. The exams were finally done in January or February, and the students were forced to come to the academia, to the university during weekends because they had to do the stuff they haven't done for 55 days. It was a large problem, and the results of the exams were very bad because everyone was tired, everyone was in conflict because during that occupation, a lot of lecturers were trying to influence the students to change their minds and stop the occupation, and a lot of friendships were broken during that time. That social bonds, a lot of social bonds were also broken. But that was one of the ideas how to make the things easier, life easier in the occupation. Another case is provisionally bad. for some moments, some days, some nights, a lot of people were, tens of people could stay in the building. Sometimes there were just few of them, but anyway, there were some places prepared for those people, arranging that. In corridors, there's academic corridors, and in some corridors, you could just see those provisional beds being put for the students who were tired and, you know, had this night shift and stuff like that, and so on and so on. It was also kind of provisional beds, even more provisionally. So what was at hand was taken and used. It looks like a random situation. Definitely students were very much careful about keeping things clean, in order, and not leaving the place dirty and stuff like this. Alcohol was not allowed, so everything was in order. So they were very, very self-disciplined if it comes to caring for the space, cleaning stuff around, because the cleaning service quickly were recalled because the dean said, okay, so for the people who were cleaning up the institute regularly, they were allowed not to come to work, so the students were forced to clean everything themselves. Shortly the energy was cut off, internet was cut, and in November and December the heating was cut off. So that's very interesting. That's very interesting thing because it's a student toilet. But what's interesting about it is that students and lecturers have separate toilets. And
Regularly?
But yes. And if you're a student, you are allowed only to use this, so-called hole in the earth, I don't know, in the ground, whatever. And it was something very peculiar for me because I can't recall a situation in which I saw academic building and the toilets were not for students and professors altogether to use. So there was this kind of social hierarchy. You can use this one, but you cannot use the others. Okay, there's gender dimensions of women and stuff like that. But this kind of professor-students, it was something very much typical for me. And professors have typical toilets. Students have had something like this. I was surprised at the picture. It shows something about social hierarchy, definitely. You go use the hall, someone else will use something else. Yeah. So this says about the hierarchy, the divisions. There's a kind of how to say. Well, you don't have barking dogs. You need to secure the entrance in case someone wants to interrupt. Because there were groups that were trying to interrupt the occupation. One of them was a Nazi group who was trying regularly to attack the building itself. What was the idea of this construction? Those are chairs, and this is a chain. And the idea was not to block the door, but to make a lot of noise when someone is trying to enter the building. So the best aspect of this idea was that it made a lot of noise. It was very noisy when someone was trying to push the door and enter the building. There was just corridor which led straight to the entrance. Okay, that's just another aspect of I don't know, security. This is a chain that were used to lock the door for a night. But it was very easy to break. So actually, if someone was trying to interrupt, it was easy to break. So it was just also kind of another provisional thing, just to be there. And one night, this chain was broken because the occupation was being attacked by kind of so-called Nazi group. It was called Nazi group. People dressed in black and masked or whatever during the night attacked the building occupation and just do some harm to some people. The explanation, the reasons for that were different. Usually that they were searching for a particular person and there was some kind of personal conflict with someone who was who was hiding in the building. But I don't know, finally there was what was the reason, but definitely that was the chain was broken, because when I was visiting the building during the occupation, the very previous night the attack took place. So the Nazi attack, the occupation the very night before I came there to do the research. I breathe just killed me. It's yeah, once again a picture from the street protest. So this message means that it's difficult, but you want to make the situation even more difficult than it is now currently for the students. And here, as I said, there were no chance to do the picture in the occupation if it comes to Bulgaria. So no one ever, when I was doing interviews, no one was able to provide me to bring me such pictures. But some media did that before, and of course from the outside, as I said. But a lot of this protest, this occupation from Bulgaria, were very strongly recognized by Western media. And as you see, it's New York Times. I think the next one, the Guardian, and stuff. So a lot of Western media wrote a lot about the protests. Thanks to that, some pictures that were somewhere kept in the media and available after Googling them out. Okay. This one more. Okupirano. So the very information that there is occupation going. And the last one picture. Also, so inside the Bulgarian student occupation. But this was that obviously it wasn't from the inside. They cannot. They wasn't able. They were not allowed to do the picture. And the inside so it was also a picture from outside. So that's the visual material. So a few pictures done by me. There's from Serbia and there's from India, which I was able to find using the browser. Actually, yeah, thank you very much for your attention. I think that if you have some further questions, and maybe discussion will follow.
Thank you. So I guess we have a lot of questions, especially in the Ukrainian situation, or maybe some comments. Oksana.
Yes. My name is Oksana. I'm working for this department. My question is about the languages you use for your research. It's obvious that in Serbia you probably have to use Serbian language and Bulgarian language. You mentioned that the interviews you've done were in English, conducted in English, right? And it looks like you are using also the media publishing in English language. Was that? The question is, did you actually use the local languages for media analysis and for communication with the protesters?
So that's a question of great importance, because a lot of methodological procedures firstly require to ask this question. Actually, I speak Serbian, I don't speak Bulgarian, and that was the first problem for me. So even though I could, read in Serbian, I couldn't do the interviews with equal quality in Serbia and Bulgaria. So I decided to keep the equal quality, to use English in both countries, but still made it easier for me to read Serbian literature. So there were a lot of problems, but it was a large research, it was a large project, so which requires the kind of taking a risk, where some things you can, if you cannot do that the way you want to do it, you try to find information on the way. So, but also a lot of people asking previously what about language stuff. And so the interviews were mainly done. The registered ones were done in English. There are a few of them which were not registered, and they were in different languages, especially in Serbian. If in Bulgaria, I don't speak Bulgarian at all, so it would be a problem for me. So it was kind of mixed, but at least try to be consequent within the interviews. So they were in English. The rest of Serbian. Few quotation myself I have translated from Bulgarian, which was very difficult for me actually. That was a procedure I have adapted to the research.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. You're really very lucky to be involved to a real protest at real time, according to your topic. And I know a little bit about your thesis, about your topic from your previous presentation in Sweden, but I haven't known a lot about your methodology. Can you tell, did you have any challenges to interviewing your colleagues as activists?
That's very interesting because the answer is absolutely no. And it was the snowball sampling, snowball sample. So certain Bulgarian countries where youth is very active, politically active, and a lot of people just take very seriously what they do. They're half official people already, and they work for the personal names and stuff like that. They're members of organizations, they're active politically, they're sometimes join political parties and stuff like that. So some of them were even, there's a requirement of anonymity when you interview your. But some of actually people I was talking to there, they expected me to quote their names, position, who they were, and stuff like that. And they were just simply saying, okay, so do you need any more people? I mean, we're here in the Department of Philosophy, we have anthropologists, sociologists, and kind of unique, we can find them, we're just here within one building. So the culture of being politically involved, I think, makes this, that those people just took that very seriously. And I haven't met in my, asking anyone for interview, no one ever refused to give an interview when I asked for that, so never got any rejection. No one has rejected my how to say that? My request for the interview. So it went surprisingly easy because a lot of my friends doing other kinds of research, more personal, maybe about biographical questions, stuff like that. But no, and that was very amazing, and people were just helping me to find other participants of the occupation protest and asking, whom do you need? Or just call my friends and they will talk to you also. So that was surprisingly went quick, and I did the research in Bulgaria thanks to the connections in Serbia, because I know I'm coming at least for the first time for quite a short time, and a friend from Serbia said, listen, I have friends in Bulgaria, I will call them in Bulgaria and we'll arrange the interviews before you come, and when you come then you have the channels fixed. So that's thanks to that, within 2 weeks or 3 weeks I've done 12 interviews, so that's a lot. For those who do, it's a lot for a short time. So, and it was possible thanks to this networking in Belgrade, because people know each other.
I have also a few questions, and we have such a pause. So one question is theoretical concerning Vidya. Because here in this context, sometimes for me it looked like his theory is more useful. Why? I will explain. We have these protests, but if they are ineffective in some social transformations, why do they still exist for half a century? So if they exist for such a long time, if people still participate in them, maybe they fulfill, it's not term from Bourdieu theory, but let's say functions, in that then we should use maybe not security spaces, but rather field, and maybe there are some channel for political activists to get from the university to some political field, to be deputies or something like that. So maybe they are useful, they are functional, in that terms that they are functional in political field, like a channel to recruit new members of political systems, political field from these freshmen, from students. That's why they still exist, and that's why they are, despite their ineffectiveness, they are useful for this system.
For sure, but I think that still Foucault is better here because if you know Foucault a lot, he writes a lot about knowledge processes. And knowledge here is crucial, not social capital even, but the knowledge. So Foucault is more into that general social culture where you reproduce your taste, your artistic preferences, and so it's too broad, and Foucault will be more specific. It's about knowledge. Power is knowledge. Power is discourse. Discourse is knowledge and stuff like that. It's very much strongly attached to that concept, and that's something which I wasn't concentrating during the presentation, but a theoretical part of this dissertation is very strongly the activist book on that he's very much into knowledge processes, and that's important for Foucault. So it goes good with security and stuff like that. It's just I could just use a lot of Foucault here and just implement a little bit minor stuff. So that was.
My second question, did you study, I know that's outside your research, but maybe you talk to people who get to some higher positions due to such protests.
Yes, they did.
So did they use this knowledge or did they use social capital, political capital as a leader of such protests like Daniel Cohn-Bendit in the 60s, or maybe somehow the same trajectory for those people or no? Just your guesses.
Yes, definitely. A lot of participants of previous student protest they take a very significant high position in the society and stuff like that. But there are a lot of concepts that can be useful to explain, whether reproduction, whether kind of social capital power and stuff like that, whether kind of other things. So I think it's a question more not about preferences, but in particular the way theoretical concept you try to develop for yourself and stuff like that. I was trying to be minimalist and not to put many things and stuff like that, and not to concentrate because it's a strong structural project. So I wasn't trying to concentrate on those life trajectories, but we have people, leaders and stuff like that. I haven't been asking my people that just about the biographies. So it wasn't about identity, it wasn't about personal choice, it was all about structural dimensions. So that was, of course, very interesting. That's obviously it's a topic for another research. This is a great question.
That's why I started with that. And also, if we still don't have a question, just about the question about the first photo on protest. Let's move back.
So we can shift to that.
Question about this security spaces, so we can see, am I right? That's the question. We can see public transportation is still functioning or not?
Yes.
So can we call this space secure if it interferes with normal life?
It's not secure space. It's a space of security, which means in that particular concept that everything what's going on is being delimited. It is closed here. So that's the problem. It's not about being secure.
No, I mean, if they are separated from normal
yes,
life.
that's the problem. You see, they aren't developed together. There's life still going. A lot of things separating. Yeah, cars, streets, pavements, and some of the particular streets they are allowed to go along to. It's not every street they can go. It's simply in any other countries. Literally, the road of the demonstration is being decided in advance always. Why? Because of security reasons. Yeah? So it's not because it's secure, but it's for security reasons. So whatever, it's not about those people to be secure. It's about the entire society not to be infected using the.
Here they interfere because we can see here public transportation and demonstration. Neighbors, so I expect
to some extent it happens to some extent, but as long as it's being as long as it can be controlled, it's okay. But when the authorities, when the bus drivers, when the people lose control over what's going on, then the problem appears. Yeah. But you see, those students are numerous of them, but they do not challenge that. Yeah, they're not pushing the trolley buses ahead. And they do not even try to do so. So that's for Foucault, at least it says that they are not challenged this, so it's being kind of security because it's closed. In those terms, it's been very much kind of deterministic concept.
Okay, thank you. So do we have some Any other questions, discussion, disagreement? Not Bourdieu and Foucault, but let's use some George Ballandier, political anthropology here, or something like that. If no, Danilo.
Maybe one question. Thank you. Could you please generalize in some case the place of student protests in Central Europe, maybe in Balkans? In wider context of students' revolutions in Europe and America in 20th century.
Okay, it's very broad. So a little bit of everything. I'm not a specialist in all the students' protests, especially in America, because so it's difficult. For sure, in the 60s, that was the entire. It's been considered the entire movement. So there was America included then. In the 60s, there was not only Poland and Germany, but also Russia and stuff like that.
Maybe the main differences, the main points of difference.
To be honest, in some countries, I think it's local, to some extent, it's a local feature, issue, or potential, because as a student protest, they work in the same way, and whether they have a more positive or a constructive and transformative outcome depends on the very system itself. So, as the protests are very much similar, because academic environment is more or less unified in the world. People study, travel, exchange, speak English, send books and stuff like that. And even in the 60s, it wasn't a problem. So this is kind of homogeneous environment. What differs is the context. So I believe we should search for the differences in the national context. So for me, it's about context.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Okay, so
thank you very much.